those of us who look at this stuff, on a day-to-day basis, you get so locked in on looking at policy and things like that as being so important. But really, what the far more interesting things are looking at the deep consumer trends, and trying to. And I think the successful firms are the ones who can really figure that out and meet those needs.
A lot of it's going to be about adaptability, isn't it, Tara?
Well, I think it's understanding the route and investing in the market. I guess we, again, through an investment from the department, opened last year the Thinking House, which is to look at putting the consumer at the heart of everything. And obviously, when you put the consumer at the heart of everything, agility, flexibility is at the heart of that as well. But it's understanding what's important to consumers and having that market focus rather than that commodity focus. Because when we're looking at the value increase that we're looking to create in our exports, then it's technology meeting insight is really where the magic point comes through, rather than one of them being on their own to drive the future. And there was a new word that came into the vocabulary of the Irish industry back in 2010, co-opetition. And
what?
Co-opetition.
Co-opetition.
So it's basically traditional competitors working and cooperating together. And when you look at what Food Harvest has taught us, Foodwise has taught us, it's actually working together is building the strength of this industry, having the common agenda to get us to the starting point. And it's toolkits like this market prioritization exercise as well, that the heavy lifting is being done centrally, and then the agility that the company needs to bring into it can be done for the final step. But the more we can do together, the more we're investing, the better returns that we're getting as well.
And Edmund and John, again, picking up on the point Ambassador Yue was making about, from his point of view as an outsider, to see a conference like this, to see so many people from, all different strands in the industry coming together and talking in co-opetition or cooperatively, as Tara might say, that is something we only need to do more of from your point of view, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Ireland is a small country, albeit it is the centre of the world. It is a small country, and I think if the country wins, and I think there's some tremendous programs. I mean, Origin Green which was touched on earlier by Tara. I think it's a world's first. I think it's a very important program, and I think albeit in a long road, I think it's a very important step. I think those types of programs, I think, give us a halo for the entire country. It gives us a halo for every company operating within the country, and every company wanting to operate and export outside the country.
And what does cooperativeness mean to you, John?
Well, we have a very good example in the meat industry under the umbrella of Meat Technology Ireland. So what's Meat Technology Ireland? Meat Technology Ireland is 7 or 8 companies coming together, sharing resources to research projects that wouldn't otherwise have been researched by the companies individually. So with investment from Enterprise Ireland and the Department of Agriculture, we've been able to bring together a group of people who are like-minded and who are prepared to look into big issues that affect our sector. And that's an exciting project. One last point I'd like to take, which is slightly different. When Foodwise 2025 was constructed back in 2015, our unemployment rate at that time was about 13 or 14%. Today, it's from our point of view, it's 0%, or in fact, it's probably gone below the radar in terms of availability of staff. And while a lot of good work has been done, if you like, with the on a professional level to develop our capability to get feet on the street, we have big issues at operative level. And I think it's an issue that, if we want to progress, we need to address that issue in the food industry.
That's a good point, actually, and it's been made a lot recently. And there's one other question I want to put to each of you finally. It came up as well in some of the the Brexit dialogues, the North-South dialogues that Minister Coveney was hosting. And this is the question of some business, particularly because it is all about your supply lines. So particularly with Brexit, the uncertainty that many businesses looking at the option maybe of relocating some or part of their operations into the UK to be able to better go on doing business. Each of John and Edmund then on that. Have you considered?
Yeah, well, we're already on that path, and we already have had to make investments in the current year, and more will follow, I'm sure, to effectively Brexit-proof ourselves and to ensure that we remain in a position to serve our customers and to grow our businesses. Because we already, you know, there are two aspects to Brexit, and we've been through one of them already, which is the currency and the devaluation experience. And bar major change in the exchange rate, I expect that we have seen the most of that. So we've had our 15% devaluation against sterling, and the next phase is the question that's been addressed this weekend and over the next week or two is what will the trading relationship be in terms of whether we're in a single market or in a customs union or whatever.
You might be waiting a wee while longer for the full answer to that one. Edmund, in terms of your planning and Brexit proofing.
Yeah, I mean, from a Kerry perspective, I think it's fair to say we're fairly well diversified and fairly well hedged. I mean, we have 5 facilities in Ireland, 5 facilities in North, and maybe 20 facilities in the UK. So fairly well diversified across the patch. But and in the vast majority of cases, we manufacture and we supply into the particular areas that you know, consume our products. I think in terms of moving facilities or moving production or moving operations from one country to the other, I think you have to look at those things more holistically. I think you know, if we were considering something like that, we'd be looking at the robustness of the consumer in the UK. And what inflation and food inflation might look like for in the short to medium term. I mean, these are significant investments and would have to have a payback associated with them in the medium term. And the robustness of the UK consumer is something we'd be concerned about right now.
And Joe, can I put a final point to you again, coming back to that point you were making about the terrific demand there is out there. We see here in this hall the terrific capacity there is to produce, but I suppose the big problem we're all going to be negotiating, and the big opportunity for some, is in a world where, you know, trade deals are uncertain in a lot of places, what's going to happen to them. It's actually forming the links between the producer and the market.
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, I clearly, all of the big institutional things like trade agreements and all that are very, very important. And to the degree that they reduce uncertainty insofar as that part of the relationship is concerned, I think is very important. And clearly when you have disruptions, that's when there are issues. But otherwise, the major driving forces, I think, are, you know, consumer driven, obviously, at the end of the day. And that's even more so, even truer when you get into trade and those aspects. So.
And where there's a will, in the end, there does tend to be a way, doesn't there? Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Would you please give our panel a big round of applause? Thank you so much. That was a fascinating session.